All of us grew up camping, but we really got serious about it 13 years ago. We have added, changed, subtracted, altered, and even customized equipment for our excursions. We have lived in trapping camp in sub-zero elements and roasted in triple-digit heat for a week at a time on the river. As time passes, our experiences, they've taught us lessons, and sometimes we take them for granted. It has become second nature to us. If you want to start camping more, or you want to take your camp experience up a notch or two, this episode is for you. The old saying, the devil is in the details, it exists for a reason. It is the details that can very easily make or break your adventure. Everything from food prep, gear prep, and how to choose your gear, or how to select your camp location, it's all covered here. We will explain those things and other helpful tips to prepare you for the perfect trip right here in today's episode.
Okay, knives, cutting boards. I think I saw that at the
Cutting
bottom.
board, yep.
Pots.
Yep.
Paper towels.
Yep, we got those right here.
So the DZ totes, they're a game changer when it comes to our organizational factor of camping. They're stackable. We can have them categorized when it comes to the kitchens, the tents, our chainsaws, and other items we want to bring. So a lot of you out there probably maybe go camp and you have single items that you carry, and it's just kind of multiple trips, and it can get disorganized and crazy. So this is huge for us, and it's made things a lot more streamlined.
So coolers and ice and food and all that stuff's really kind of it's a science when you think about how many days you're going, how many guys are going to be out there, how long does this stuff have to stay frozen. Go ahead and simplify this whole thing. If you have anything that is going to be frozen for the trip, I suggest freezing it and putting it on dry ice and putting it in a separate cooler. Or you have the option of splitting up this in layers. So you can put dry ice on the bottom, and you put your frozen stuff, then a layer of foam insulation, and then your cold stuff. So we've got our frozen stuff on the bottom, and then we'll put our Pink Panther insulation right on top. Now you'll notice these gaps on the side. These are here for a reason. If you take this and run it all the way to the edge, you won't allow any of that cold air up. So now we got our frozen stuff on the bottom, we got a layer of insulation. We're gonna put the rest of our cold stuff that we just wanna keep cold, like in a refrigerator, we're gonna keep that on top. So this is a 75 quart cooler, and it has all the meals for 5 men for 5 days out camping. It's got your lunches and your dinners. It's all right in here.
So some of you have seen previous episodes, we've talked about how we keep our bait alive when we're not on the river, before we go to the river. We use an aquaponics system. So real simple terms, we've got a holding tank. We've used an IBC tank that we cut the top off of. We've got a pump that pumps that water out of the holding tank to 2 grow beds that I have outside here. Those grow beds are above the water line of this tank. That water filters through the plants that you've planted in that media, which then filters the ammonia. That's the biggest fish killer of bait, is ammonia, through that, and peers the water, which is then re-pumped and dropped back into this tank. So you've got a cycle, and it continuously runs, so it'll always run. So that's how we keep our bait alive. I've had up to about 300 bullheads in this tank, up to several weeks. So it's a really good system once you get it up and running. So when we go to camp, we take all these bait from this tank. We use a simple cooler system. We have a big 60 quart cooler. We take that bait, we put it into the cooler. We do some water changes while we're at camp because we don't have a filtration system out there. So these bullheads are pretty hardy, they can live in there, but about every day you've got to pull the plug on the cooler, let some of that water out, add some new fresh river water back in there. We usually take 125 to 175 baits depending on how many people are going to be fishing with us and how long we're going to fish. And those baits will stay in that cooler alive throughout the whole entire week. And then we bring them home and put them right back into the tank. So we have them for the next trip, and we can continually have a stockpile of bait so that we're not continually always going out trying to chase bait down.
Every boat burns a different amount of fuel, but we have a rule that each boat is going to burn about 3 gallons of fuel a day. It is all based upon averages. We transport gas in standard 5-gallon cans, and we end up taking close to 50 gallons of fuel for 1 week. We all know gas cans are terrible. The safety police has made them worse over the years, resulting in spilling more fuel with cumbersome junk that we're all forced to use. To combat that, we use these slick little siphons. No more tilting your can. Just set your can on the deck, and within 1 minute, a 3/4-inch siphon hose can drain 5 gallons of fuel into your tank. You can find these at the MudbuMs Supply Shack. Here's a good tip for you guys when setting up a camp. And it took us a couple years and a couple times to figure this out, but you gotta think about the sun rising. Nobody wants to get burnt up with sun peeking through their window at 5:45, 6 a.m. So we think about where the sun's coming up, where it's gonna set, and where the wind's predominantly gonna come from. So we're backing the kitchen tent up with the back wall facing the west to kind of break the wind through the camp. And behind us, we have this big shade wall so that by noon, we got shade all day. So if you want to pick out a perfect spot, think about where your sun's coming up, where's your shade, where's the sun going to be in the middle of the day, where's your tents, what are the doors, where are the doors going to face, and that's really going to make your camping experience, once everything is set up, that much better.
Ready? Yep, go.
So one thing that you always want to remember to do, because we have learned from experience, as soon as you get your structure up, stake it down. We had a day where it was calm out, unlike today when it's windy. We put the camp up, went out, set lines, came back to a tent in the river.
That's interesting.
So always remember, stake off your tent as soon as it goes up. So I think it was probably season 1 or 2. I was doing a tile job with Shiner, and I saw one of these in someone's garage. And I thought, man, that's a great idea for us to take to camp, because how do we get water in here? We used to bring this monstrous tank that weighed way too much for 4 men to carry up a hill. So now we have this pump, and it's really simple. You just put it together, and this actually will all go down inside of here. And we have water. So once you get your water station set up, what we always do is dig a little pit here, because when we have 5 men out on the river, a lot of water spill comes right here and you end up with a soupy hole in your camp. So what we do is we'll dig a little hole here that can hold that water until it seeps back down into the ground, and then you don't have a big mud puddle in your nice enclosed area in your camp. When you come out on the river, you have a couple options. You can extremely rough it and sleep on the ground. And then you can bring a pad, or you can bring a cot. We choose to sleep on cots. That gets you up off the ground. It's a little more comfortable than just sleeping on the uneven sand or forest or pasture land that you've cleared out. So we use the cots from SJK, which have a storage compartment on this particular model that we use, that you're allowed to store some stuff on the underside of your cot, and then keeps it up off the bottom floor of your tent and just keeps it nice and organized. So we like to put tiki torches around camp. Not only is it cool, it just kind of lights everything up, but the smoke kind of debugs everything. So far, everything down here is really nice, but there have been times where you cannot get any relief, period, from a bug, even in the middle of the river.
Camping in the early spring and late fall is truly the most comfortable time. However, sometimes the fish are biting when the weather is hot. If it's hot, there's most likely going to be more bugs. In order to combat this, we wage war on these creatures. First, knock the weeds down. This eliminates places for them to live and hide. Next, gas them out with a fogger. Then, keep them out with the tiki torches and the citronella. Lastly, use some DEET for the skeeters and Dettol, which is a topical antiseptic for the gnats.
Get yourself some Dettol. It's the old gnat remover.
So right here we have a filtration contraption, which is pretty neat. It is a gravity feed. So it's got two 4-liter bags where you've got your dirty water and your clean water. It goes through the filter and it's gravity fed, so you don't have to do any pumping or any extra work like that. But instead of having an extra step in there with transporting from the clean to our jug, we're just gonna go directly from the dirty through the filter into that jug. So we're gonna go pull it out of the source right now. So that'll take a couple minutes. It's 4 liters, so it's a little over a gallon. It's about 1.25 gallons per bladder. So we're gonna have to do this a couple times to get our 5 gallons of water that we need for now. So you can get it, earlier we were at a lake, you can get it from I guess a stationary body of water, but it's always good to get it from a moving body. Just, it keeps it a little cleaner, and you could maybe even drink right out of that, but we're not gonna roll that dice. We're not gonna take that chance right now.
We never go anywhere without an SJK Roadhouse tarp. It's a universal and economical lifesaver that straps to our vehicles or trees to keep you dry. It is a great option for a backcountry trip when you are packing light and may not be bringing a tent. These can be found at the MudbuMs Supply Shack. If someone said make sure you use wood for your fire, you would most likely want to backhand them across their mouth for telling you such obvious crap. However, this next one, well, it is true. You may not think it is a big deal until you have a storm bearing down on you at camp that convinces you that Jesus himself is about to ride down from the heavens. The last thing that you want to have to do is locate the chainsaw and head out for firewood when one of these ragers happens. You're going to be buttoning up tents and securing boats and console covers and everything else if you got a big one bearing down on you. The tip is, always have a pile of wood on hand and never let it deplete. You should always have a minimum of 10 logs in camp at all times. By doing this, you will always ensure your fire never goes out. Getting one started again is never any fun.
So we are making coffee right now in a pour over. Look, not everybody needs coffee in the morning. We do. And when we saw these big frig pour overs that fit these tumblers, I thought we got a winner, because we're typically used to making coffee in a percolator or a French press. But with this, we can boil our water and pour it over, and we're making coffee really quick.
This might look really stupid building stairs, but this is the most used walkway for the next week. So they got to be built right. And if they cave in, you're just gonna have a bunch of pissed off campers. And then it's gonna be my fault, but I'm gonna blame Willie. So that's why we do this.
There's nothing funnier than watching 6 grown men trying to climb up a 50-degree riverbank that stands 12 feet high after a good rain. It may seem overkill, but that is why we carve steps in the bank. Yes, it looks cool, but they really do serve a purpose. It will prevent you from wearing a neck brace until Christmas because you slipped in the mud and went head first down the bank into the console.
A lot of people think that ditty pole fishing is very easy. You just go out and stick a bunch of poles. And they also think that it's lazy. And to be quite frank, it's a lot of work, and you can be very strategic about your sets. And the more strategic you are about your sets, the higher probability you're going to have that you're going to catch a fish. Right now, what we've done is we have found an area in the river where it's a big, hard, high pan bank on an outside bend, and right here we've got a lot of obstructions. We've got a big log jam, so this is prime habitat for a flathead to go into those logs, into that structure, and lay in wait during the day, where your bait fish are obviously going to congregate as well too, up in the shallows or along banks or down in the structure out of the current. So that's where he is probably going to be at, in the structure, around an eddy, around a hard pan, on an elevation change. That's typically where you're going to have your best success. So that's why we chose this location, and it's time to set a pole.
All right. Ooh. Setting the poles, majority of the time, It all depends on what you're beating into, so the soil. So if it's gonna be pretty sandy, and if it's pretty sandy, I would probably tell you to not set there, because if you can easily pull it out, so can the fish. If it's something where it is a absolute game-changing spot where you have to put it there, you better angle that pole straight up in the air, where then that fish has got to dig down, pull it out. I mean, if you got a 60-pounder, that's pretty much what you're setting for. Like my boy Willie says, set for them magnum success.
The flathead is a giant mussel. They're very, very, very fast and extremely powerful. He is going to really put some serious tests to your line and your hook. And when he hits the end of that line, it's like hitting a brick wall, man. So your weakest link, most times, it's gonna be your hook. That's why we went with a 10-aught offset Trocar TK619. That is the sharpest hook in the world. And we paired that with a 400-pound braided line. It's 15 times stronger than steel. That's why we've paired it up with this lead. So we're gonna take our 2-ounce egg sinker out of our hog box. We're just gonna feed that through, very easy, very effortless, onto our lead. I'm gonna reach over and I'm gonna unscrew this cap. We can pull on that line and start to screw this cap back on. Tighten that down, make sure she's good and tight. So now we have our 7 foot of line, and we're gonna put our lead on it. Again, this is very similar to what we just did with our slide. This is all loops. We created this system that you'll never have to tie a knot again. We'll tie all your knots, your entire system, we'll build all that. We'll do the work so you don't have to. Everything is loops, and it all goes together very nicely. Only thing that this pole needs right now is we need some bait on this hook. So what we got right here is a bullhead. This is a species of catfish. They really don't get very big. These things stay alive on the hook very, very well. Guys use chubs, guys use sunnies, guys use a myriad of different baits, but we typically use bullheads because they'll last long on the hook. Again, check your local laws and regulations, because in every state it's different. But here in the state of Iowa, we can use these as bait. So we like to run our hook in front of the dorsal and between the top of the skin and essentially the spine. You kind of see this little hump here. We're just going to penetrate his back and work that hook through that meat. Now he's hooked up, and this dude is ready for the water. Got that 2-ounce egg sinker down there, and we're gonna drop him. Now he is sitting on the bottom with where he's at right now. So what I wanna do is I want to wrap him around this pole clockwise, which is very important, because if you wrap these counterclockwise, you actually could unscrew your cap. So it's important that you wrap your line clockwise around these caps. So right now, he has about 12 inches of room between the bottom and him. And he's about 3 foot down. We've got this guy all set here, cap's tightened down, bait's in the water, we're legal, we got it tagged, and it's ready for the next pole. Easy as that. Adios, Mr. Pole. We'll be back to check you when we pull that big fish off.
So I'll actually do a lot of setting by myself. I'll go out during the week, get up early in the morning, run lines. So there's an art to setting a pole by yourself. First thing you need to do, you need to get your boat stabbed against the bank and get the desired throttle that'll just hold you there in position. These Gator Trax boats have a stab hole in the back and a stab hole in the front where you can take this pole, stab the boat in. So that's the first thing. So I'm stabbed off. I keep my boat motor in forward so that it keeps pressure against the bank. Even though I'm stabbed off, it still just helps hold this boat in place. Now you can do your work. So sometimes, like in this instance, I probably could have stopped beating that pole right here, but because I wanted to get on the inside of that seam, I kept driving my pole in so that that bait is coming back in. It's crucial to have that bait not being blown out by current. So when that fish is just swimming around real nice and easy, it's easier for the predator to come in and attack and grab that bait. And there you have it. That is how you set a pole by yourself. The boat is still pegged in place. You can come back here and go ahead and just reverse out real nice and easy, and you've set a line all by yourself.
All right, so pretty much our trip is over with, and now sometimes the dreaded part is pulling poles, and it can be easy and it can be efficient with our pole set. So pretty much when we come up to a set, I use the hook and I'm able to undo this slip knot real quick here. You're able to put your weight and your hook back through, so then you can salvage everything. So then you can just put it back in your box and use it for the next time, not have restring hooks and weights and all that. So we'll undo the line, pull it out, and it will slide all the way back into the pole.
There's this really sweet old elm tree right here that we want to use for the flagpole. But it's kind of, we have this tight little narrow area here that we have to follow this tree, and it's the way it's leaning, it's probably going to be closer to this tent than we kind of want it to be. But we're going to give it an attempt. We're going to do it before Crash gets back.
We could move Crash's tent very easily.
I'd rather do that.
Come on.
All right, precision felling. This is for James Holcomb. You want to get that rope as high as you can and pull it straight down where the weight.
I don't think you can get it. We can get it high enough to change its fall path. I feel like this is a really good idea, but it's probably not the best idea, because this tree could actually take a different fall path than what we were actually planning on, and then just completely ruin everything. Which a small 1% of me wants to see that happen, and then have a huge explosion.
Like that one. Ow, Nat.